Hello everyone, this is Majin speaking. Welcome to today's episode of the Bootleg Breakdown program, where on this particular occasion we're going to be looking at the last of the currently released Legend Creation knockoffs, being their clone on the Android 21 SH Figuarts figure. As you can kind of tell from the packaging, it's pretty standard fare for what they've been doing for actually the quite past few releases in this case, being that the box itself is, aside from some print quality issues, mostly the same, although obviously you have their makeshift logo plastered on the front, and the notable absence of the copyright information and all the official logos and stuff. Once we get the figure out of the package though, it becomes quite notable that there's something funky going on in this particular figure. As you can kind of see, it's standing a little around, I'm going to say 5 3/4 inches, which is actually undersized compared to the real figure, which we're going to be looking at a little bit later. Now, as you can kind of tell here, I'm trying to attach the tail to the main body because it's not directly attached out of the box. And I'm actually having quite a bit of a difficult time because, unfortunately, the sizing for either the peg or the opening, if not both, are kind of off in this case. So if you wanted to attach it a little better, you probably want to heat either the body, the tail, or both in this instance. But unfortunately, for the review, I haven't had that set up. So it will actually pop up once or twice during the course of the review if I have that footage in here. Speaking of things that are unfortunate, though, you can't get through a Legend Creation review without having to address the elephant in the room, being how they handle the joints on these figures as of late. And as you can see me looking at the hip joints right there, as once again, unfortunately, they are completely counterfeit. Everything is completely a merged joint there, meaning that you have no side-to-side movement whatsoever, although the things are actually quite stiff in this case. Unfortunately, you really can't move the legs at all. It's an absolute disappointment. The leg or the ankle joint on that particular one is a bit floppy. The other one's a little better, but not by too much. Toe joints need a little work, to be honest, and unfortunately makes the figure a little hard to stand overall. I had to kind of really fuss it to get in place. There's no butterfly joints on this figure, as to be expected. They're kind of just ball joints stuck in the side there. And the elbow joints, I find, are actually quite awful. Mostly because the pegs are really incorrectly sized, I would say. So, in terms of the wrist joints, they're functional, but they aren't exactly what I would call great quality joints by any means. There's a bit of hip movement or kind of a waist joint. You do get some movement, which is okay. Same with the upper body there. And the hair, we're going to take a little more of a look at it later, but unfortunately the whole hair and head, because of the weight, causes the whole thing to be really loose, at least in my case. And of course, as we remove the faceplate, because I just want to check on something here. Yeah, unfortunately I can tell the hair has been casted improperly, to say the very least. It's actually a little smaller than what I feel the real one should be, but you're going to see that right away as we bring the real figure onto the stage here. And you can definitely tell right from looking at it which one's the real and which one's fake, because the real one is a good deal higher in this case. And oh my, there's quite a more difference in the hair than I would have originally guessed. The Bootleg's hair is completely undersized in this case, which is actually very surprising. Various other elements in the figure you can tell because of the Bootleg joints are either elongated or slightly shrunk. I noticed the waistline is definitely lower on the Bootleg than it should be by a small bit, but it's noticeable. And also the legs, and actually a lot of the things have slightly shrunken down proportions, unfortunately, just because of poor casting job. But the hair is the most egregious by far. You can definitely tell there's a lot of volume that has been lost on there. And of course, you can now really tell where the joints start falling apart on the Bootleg, namely how the elbow joints should be kind of a cylindrical disc one, kind of the same stuff they used for the earlier Android 18 figure, but here they're just more ball joints. There's just generally a lot softer details on the Bootleg compared to the real deal, and it's actually just, once you put it side to side, it's actually quite disappointing. I'm just gonna have to warn you right now, if you were looking for this for a replacement for the real deal rather than pay for the full thing, your mileage is gonna vary on this one. However, now looking at the accessories themselves, I believe I have the Bootlegs on the right, or Bootlegs on the left, real ones on the right here. You can also tell from there that, oh wait, no, reverse that order. Bootleg on the right, real ones on the left. And you can definitely tell that because the detailing on the hand as well as the paintwork is much softer on the Bootleg. And of course you can see on the joint openings, they're not perfect matches. So if you're looking to really switch it up so you can, like if you lost something from the real figure and you need to use the Bootleg for parts, you're definitely going to want to mess with the openings in order to get that to work. And of course touch up the paint quite a bit too on the hands here. Moving on to the donut in this case, you can tell the the fake donut right easily away. It's very poorly casted by comparison, but same could be said about most of the different hands in this case as well. And a little bit on the faces too as we get to that one. Now this is me trying to mess around. I think I actually grabbed the wrong hand for the donut in this case, so I really... let's switch it out. Let me get the right one. That's how it looks like with the donut in the hand. I believe that's on the real one. And how does the fake hand and fake donut setup work? As it turns out, actually, it's pretty okay. It's a decent enough fit. It's not as necessarily snug as the other one, but it's functional in case you wanted to kind of replicate that from the win pose of the game. However, when you look at the faces, you'll definitely notice on the bootleg face, the eyes, well, most of the facial features are slightly off kilter, as well as the eye decals being slightly shinier than what they should be in this case. On that particular open mouth face. On the closed one, it's not as bad, but you can definitely tell the eyes are slightly lower than they should be, and immediately for the good face, it's slightly off kilter. I think the jaw is actually a little smaller than it should be, so the face is also undersized. But in terms of the quality of the eyes on that one, it's actually not half bad. And this is more for proof of concept. This is, I believe, the real figure I have in my hand here, which we're going to remove the face on. And in case you're wondering, can you reuse the faces from the bootleg on the real figure? Let's just grab a sample piece here. That's probably a better face on this one. The answer to your question is technically yes. It's not a perfect fit. You can see a slight gap up top, but it is functional in case you really do need to swap out some faces. That's probably the one part you can use here. And here we have the actual teardown itself in place, so we got everything separate and joined. And you can kind of say why the hair was so loose and wobbly. It was held in by this one singular ball peg, which is, I believe, not how that's supposed to be held, to say the least. At least not as small of a one. It was actually quite loose. Speaking of proof of concept, you can kind of see there's the shoulder bit there. Everything is being held in by ball joints, and the upper body is definitely kind of a solid torso in there. Generally speaking, this is... I'm sorry if this is me repeating a lot of stuff you've seen from the previous bootleg videos, but unfortunately, this seems to be how they run their business in this case, or run their clones. You have a lot of ball joints that are being used to hold things in place that shouldn't be there. You have a lot of missing joints. You don't have your butterfly joints. You don't have your action body hip joints at all. The knee joints are... Technically, they're decent representations compared to some of the ones we've had on previous bootlegs. Here's the hips in motion, by the way. Everything is just one fused bit. It's absolutely horrible. It literally does not work at all. This is like 90s level articulation bit. And here's the knee joint. It's not very well casted. It's actually very wobbly and bendy. I was worried I was going to break these things when I was trying to separate them. But it's functional, at least. I'll give it that much. And for the most part, no, the joints on this figure are honestly god-awful, I'm afraid to say. I would say, even if you were looking to pick up this figure for like modification work, I can't honestly recommend it, I'm afraid. Anyway, getting back to the point, here's kind of the feet on there. You guys can kind of see that one ankle joint that was really loose. Turns out because it kept popping out partway through the view in this case, so it's really hard to get there. The faces themselves are slightly filter in terms of their sizing. It doesn't work particularly well, I find. And in terms of the hands, they're definitely not great quality. Like I said, the detailing, just like everything else in this figure, is soft, and there's definitely some issues in terms of the casting, but you probably can reuse those hands if you did want to kind of muscle around and fix some things. And of course, they'll work decently enough on this particular figure. And now that we've had a full look at what this particular bootleg has to offer, it's going to be no surprise that I'm going to recommend to skip this particular release completely, because unless you really need the bootleg parts to fix the real one, yeah, just take a look at this thing and you can't tell me that this is going to be worth the 20 or so bucks plus shipping. On that note, thanks for watching everyone, take care and catch you later.